This is the Daily Wrestling News Show for November, 2nd? I think we're on now. Is that right? November 2nd. Travis, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. This is my season finale. Hopefully I don't die by the end of the episode so that maybe I can make a return to season 2. We'll see.
Well, there must always be a Stark in Winterfell. So
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, yeah. As Travis kind of mentioned, we are going through this week. We're doing our season finale for each host, I guess. And the reason is I have some big projects that I'm working on for the website, Minutes to Bell Time. Some of them I'm very excited about. I'm not really releasing what I'm working on so much, but there is a technical upgrade that we're going through. It's going to make things faster, give me the ability to run queries and things like that. So I'm working on that. We're going to put Daily Wrestling News Show on the shelf for a bit after this week's slate of shows, and then we'll do roundtables, we'll do post shows, we'll do things like that. We'll have plenty of video and podcast content coming out, but we're not going to have a daily 10 a.m. show. We are going to do a roundtable with all of the hosts 7 to 10 days after the Royal Rumble. So we'll be able to look at where things have progressed over a 3-month period as opposed to like a 24-hour period. So I think it'll be really, really interesting. So we're not going to have as much content, but all of the content will be great. So that's what my hope is there. So
sounds good.
All right. So that being said, I just mentioned we're not going to have a ton of content between now and the Royal Rumble. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Travis's hopes for the next 3 months, basically, to get us to Royal Rumble, what he hopes to see in wrestling, like stuff, such like that. But before we do that, we did something like this about 77 episodes ago at the 100th episode of this show. So I want to revisit what you said then about what your hopes were.
Let's see. I don't know if my hopes and dreams came through or not. This is a little scary for me.
Well, you had two.
Okay.
Two major hopes. One of them was that you hoped AEW would do 6 pay-per-views rather than 4. So we still have the 4 standard pay-per-views, but they did announce, I think shortly after we had the 100th episode, that there are going to be also 4 major shows on TNT throughout the course of the year, which I think will be, like your big shows that you build to. That are not Dynamite and they're not Rampage. They're 4 specials. So to me, that's not quite a pay-per-view, but it's going to be a very big show, and you're going to get 4 of those. So maybe that rounds down to 6 pay-per-view type of thing.
Yeah, that's pretty close, right? Like I feel like that's like if it's done in the way that like Winter is Coming was done and different things like that, like those kind of supplement. It's sort of the best of both worlds if you're a fan. A, you don't have to pay for it, and B, they're building storylines into that probably feed off into the coming up pay-per-view afterwards. So, I think TNT gets the rub there a little bit, and we get free great matches as fans. So
yeah, you were mentioning at that time that you just felt like 3 months of a build for a pay-per-view was a little rough, and a couple times a year it's longer than that because they cram, like Full Gear is really close to All Out.
Mm-hmm.
But, when you go from Double or Nothing to All Out, that's a long time. That's like close to 4 or 5 months. June, July, August.
It is a long time. And they not, they don't sit on storylines with people and have them fight 15 different times before they get to the pay-per-view either. So the build is a little strange sometimes.
The other thing that you had mentioned, your second hope, was you were looking for the second show. This was before they announced Rampage.
Okay.
But the thing that you had talked about, which is kind of a cool idea that they had not done, you were saying that it'd be nice if they did like an episodic show where each episode like featured a single wrestler who did sort of the creative direction for the show. So you'd do a hardcore show with Jon Moxley, Darby Allin do his thing where he books the show, and then that person's in the main event. John Smith said he really wants the John Silver episode, so so we haven't got that. But
so I think
something out there that could be
I think I was probably ahead of my time on that based on what Tony Schiavone said recently about thinking that in 2022 the AEW streaming service would be up. So I'm positive that they're probably going to need content. So maybe I was just 2 years in advance with what I wanted or hoped for. Who knows if they'll go into that direction, but they're definitely going to do some stuff that's content based that's outside of the wrestling ring. So maybe
Yeah,
we'll get it.
you got Roads to the Top, which is
There you go.
kind of like that, but it's just one guy,
Yeah.
one or two people, I guess. All right. So that said, that's what you said about 6 months ago. So what say you now? What are your hopes for the next 3 months?
Hopes for the future, and these will be kind of all over the place. I hope that GCW continues to grow. We're seeing some really interesting stuff from them, and the people that are participating on their shows, the caliber and what they have access to has gone up immensely just in the short period of time that you and I have been following it. I mean, the Briscoes are the new champions.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of stuff going on in that upper
Perfect
indie
timing
world
too,
that's
because
yeah,
Manslaughter got injured.
yeah, Manswarder got injured, and we saw Danhausen that went down too. We got, he's going to need a new leg. Um, and to move into that, I hope ROH gets a buyer or gets back on track. Ring of Honor was sort of my first dose of indies outside of local stuff that felt like it mattered and felt like it was relevant, and the crop of people that came out of there was pretty incredible based on what we see today. So hopefully they get their, the ship gets righted over there, or they get it figured out, or they move it to somebody that has a passion to do something with it that it deserves. Because Ring of Honor is a really good name, and it's a good trademark to have and stuff. So hopefully we see that, come out of whatever this malaise that they're in is right now.
Let me just riff on that for a second, because I
Yeah.
had some notes down about Ring of Honor too, and it's somewhere between my hopes and my wild ass predictions. Um, you know, there's a good and a bad. Like Ring of Honor is making all of the talent available to, they can go sign someplace, they can work elsewhere, whatever. They're all released from their contracts. Um, there's a chance that the Ring of Honor may actually do better afterwards, because if these guys don't go out and sign exclusive, or there are more top talent that haven't signed exclusive available, and Ring of Honor is booking in a way where they're not tied into the same people that they haven't contracted, their guys that they're using now can go out and build a name elsewhere by doing a 3-month run at this company or a 3-month run at that company, so that when they come back for the Ring of Honor show, they're a bigger name. And also, maybe Ring of Honor can pull in somebody like, John Moxley, who works everywhere, or something like that, and they can work on those shows and make the show, that much better. So my wild ass prediction was that maybe AEW makes heavy use of a lot of the recently released ROH talent, and maybe that actually improves Ring of Honor's stance when they do come back, or maybe AEW acquires so much Ring of Honor talent that they actually start another show, whether that be a television show or a YouTube show. So I just want
Yeah,
to
I
riff on
think
that.
I think that's all. Those are all good points, and I agree. I mean, there are plenty of places now where somebody like Roosh, Dragon Lee, they can go and get more exposure. During that period of time, you could certainly do an Impact loop. You could do a MLW loop. You can
Sure.
do a New Japan Strong loop, right? So there's a bunch of opportunities where there's taped wrestling, that's done in blocks of time where you can, go over to their studio, work the days that you need to be on that, and you're on the programming for, a month or so, and kind of go from there. And who knows, maybe some of them get a build on a pay-per-view or something like that. There is good talent there. I would say, from my perspective, it's a lot of raw, unpolished stuff.
There's some, yeah,
Um,
for sure.
outside of the guys like maybe your Jay Lethals and your Briscoes of the world, there's a lot of stuff that, like, kind of needs to be in the rock tumbler a little bit longer and needs to work through some of that stuff. But it's an indie promotion that has an indie feel to it, even though it's owned by Sinclair and a giant media conglomerate with a whole ton of money. It's still presented in a way that's kind of gritty and stuff like that, and that's part of what people love for sure. But you got guys like EC3 that have been around a little bit that could do something, and the Shane Taylor stuff and all the violent stuff. Like, there's definitely people there that will get work outside of that. I don't know. I think we'll probably see PCO do a Minoru Suzuki-esque
Sure.
loop around before he hangs it up. So, and that'll be fun for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I think seeing what Ring of Honor does in these next 3 months and what we know when we have this show next is going to be a really interesting talking point.
Yeah, I would agree. To move forward a little bit, I would say, my hopes for the future would be less trash finishes by WWE. I think that's a pie in the sky. They love a DQ or a roll up or some kind of garbage, and they can't, for whatever reason, write themselves out of booking characters in a poor way. So I don't know. Like I don't wish failure on anybody, but I feel like they need to fall a lot more to really get an adjustment there, or something big needs to happen in the upper end of the company for them to sort it out. Because I honestly don't know how much they care about the quality of their product with regard to it making a whole ton of sense or being something that people that look at it more than just a baseline entertainment of flashiness and characters care to chew on.
Yeah.
So hopefully they get that figured.
It's just not satisfying when you spend 20 minutes watching a match that you think is really good and then it ends up having a no finish. And then when you come back for the return, it's a 5-minute match with a crappy like roll up type of finish, and that's the end of the feud. That happens a lot, and it's not that satisfying.
Yeah, you just don't feel like you're paid off. And then my last one for hopes for the future is AEW figures out Rampage. And what I mean by that is there's nothing wrong with the show. Anybody that's had the ability to take a look at that 1 hour of wrestling, I'll put that 1 hour wrestling up against any 1 hour wrestling that you want to see on TV for any show ever. And it's going to be good or better than whatever you're watching. But the slot that it's in now, the way that they put it taped after the Dynamite stuff, it makes for a quieter arena than what it deserves. So I think they really need to sort it out, whether that's make it a 2 hour show and then sell some more tickets to a different arena, or however they want to do it. It's not working for the company itself, even though the numbers are, they popped a better number this week than they did last week, but it's fluctuated. And
Yes.
they haven't been able to get anywhere near the numbers that they got when Punk came out. Now, that's kind of a once in a lifetime thing. You're never going to get that pop again. Take advantage of it where you can, but something needs to change with that show, whether it's moving it into an earlier time slot or extending the amount of time or when they're filming it. I don't know. I'm at a point right now where I don't enjoy watching most of the WWE stuff. I don't love taped wrestling.
Yeah. I want to say, I think, a couple of things on Rampage. First, Andre said last night in the Minutes to Bell Time conversation thread, one of his wild ass predictions for 2022 is that Rampage gets canceled, and I think that might be going a little far. I think TNT and TBS need to look at that product and say, man, if it's doing this good in this slot, how good would it do in this other slot, and would it do better than some of the stuff that we have? But Rampage does feel weird to me, and there are times, like you mentioned, the taped thing, and from going to a couple of Dynamites recently that when you sit there through AEW Dark Elevation and you have a great Dynamite, and then you go into no matter how great Rampage is, you're sitting there after having already watched 3 hours, and it's tough. Like you're ready to go home. It's a weeknight, and you're watching this at least probably 10:30 before they start it. So you're tired, and we saw that at the last Rampage where people started leaving and stuff, and that wasn't because there wasn't good wrestling on, right? You had Eddie Kingston and Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson. You had the Abaddon match, which was very, very good. So, like you said, there's nothing wrong with the product. It's very, very good. It's just it seems like it's placed in the wrong spot, and when it's not live, it takes a lot of gas out of it because everybody knows the results. So, yeah, hopefully they do figure it out. And I don't think we're going to go as far as Andre said as a wild ass prediction. It gets canceled.
No, I don't think so either, because I'll tell you, I guarantee you it's doing better numbers in the crappy slot that it's in right now, than any Shawshank Redemption replay or something like that they were going to put in there.
It's usually number between 1 and 4 and cable in that slot.
Yeah. So
and
I
there's
mean,
1,700 cable stations. So
again, it's a taped show.
yeah,
They could literally put that show wherever the hell they want, really.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
like you're worried about a live audience or anything like that. And to speak to what you said about it, it's just a long night, right? Because Dynamite always finishes with something to make you want to come back and tune in the following week, whether it's a surprise or a big finish or whatever the case may be. So like all the serotonin and dopamine that's in your body that can cheer for wrestling after sitting through an hour of 15 or 20 matches of elevation, which
yep,
I understand why they do that first, because if they did that at the end, the arena would be completely empty.
yep,
um, and then you go all the way through Dynamite, which has got its highs most of the time, and then you're like, oh, Rampage is here. Like even a younger version of me wouldn't have the energy to be able to
yeah,
be that up for it and stuff, you know. So something's definitely got to change for them for that, because it's just it's too good. It's too high quality to not get the enthusiasm in the building that it deserves.
yeah, yeah. And I want to go back quickly because I'm looking at the stuff that Andre mentioned yesterday. He also said regarding the ROH conversation, he thinks Vince buys ROH. Um, we talked about scenarios where Tony Khan buys ROH. Um, if Vince buys them, it's not for the content; it's going to be for the library, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you'll
um,
probably not see another match from ROH at that point.
yeah. Anything further on the Rampage stuff, though?
Nope, that's it. That was all my hopes for the future for the at least the four promotions that were like kind of top of mind for me. New Japan, hope for the future is it's hard to say. I'm just interested to get the English speaking wrestlers back across the pond to commingle with their Japanese counterparts so that we start to see what's going to happen from the fallout and like, in between the timeline that you gave me, like we're going to get Wrestle Kingdom at least the first 2 days of the three during that period of time, and it should be super super interesting. So I'm glad that that's going to happen, and we'll get the whole roster back together again, the band's back together, and who knows, maybe somebody from the United States will go across the pond and start causing some problems over there too. So
Yeah, the hope I had written down from my side for this show was just that Japan opens up and that New Japan is able to utilize all of their talent by the time we get to Wrestle Kingdom.
yep.
Don't know if it'll happen. Right now, they're still sitting at like you go over there, you got to sit for 10 days in a hotel room before you can go out in public. And hopefully those restrictions they lessen, and hopefully the fans want to go back because that's another issue. Like, you see these great big huge buildings that they run and they're at 10% or 20% capacity. It's not a good look.
No.
So I would like to see, it's a hope that New Japan kind of gets back on track and that they can utilize all of their talent, because once they can, and they have all this brand they've built up in the United States, and they run a super show and they've got, you got Tom Lawler and Fred Rosser and all these guys that are working alongside Okada and Tanahashi and whatnot. You're going to have some really interesting stuff that we haven't had yet. So.
Yep. It'll be nice and fresh.
So hopefully when we're talking about this 3 months from now, we could say, oh my God, isn't that great? So
Exactly.
all right. Okay, Travis, what's your wild ass prediction for 2022? And I want to mention that when we had episode 100, you thought Andrade would become AAA world champion. Because about that time he had issued the challenge against Kenny Omega for Triple Mania. And everybody has said, even Kenny Omega himself has said, Andrade was booked to win that match, but Tony Khan put his foot down, which is kind of what Al Carl said he thought might happen.
Yeah, Rick
So
didn't even help him in the end for that either. So
yeah,
yeah, it was a hope. So I'm gonna do, since it's Wild Ash prediction for 2022. I think I'm gonna hold that I've got the entirety of the year rather than just up to
yes,
Rumble.
yeah, for
So
sure.
my prediction is that the person that finally beats Roman is Walter.
I love it. Yeah,
Um, and I don't say that because I believe it's going to happen, because I think, and I don't have a nice way to say it, I think it's too intelligent of a decision for them to do. Because if you really take a look at, and when I was listening to the episode yesterday with you and John, um, there's not a lot of names and there's not a lot of talent where you can go that you can elevate somebody to kind of carry the company in the same way. the comparisons for Walter's run in NXT and Roman's current run on the main roster are similar.
Sure.
Walter has shown that he can wrestle up and down. He is sized Vince appropriate to hold the title. I think it comes down to, can they attract him to be stateside long enough to make that happen? And that's a personal decision that he's been against for as long as I've known. So he is the one person that I think you could put into an upper end thing and make it believable and make it be something that the fans don't revolt against.
I think the big thing there for me is, like, at minimum, I want to see him come in and then not cut the knees out, from him right from the start. Bring him in, even if half the fan or 3/4 of the fans don't know who he is. That's perfect. You tell us who he is.
Correct.
They have all the credentials right there in their own company that they can talk about. How he had the UK belt for almost 1,000 days, and that he's an unstoppable force. Tell us that story.
Correct.
And then throw him in there with Roman. Don't wait. Don't wait until you've beat him 12 times before you show us tell us who he is. You can't beat him 13 times from raw roll up or botched finishes or whatever, and then try to tell us that he's a monster that can take down Roman. Start strong and move there. And even if he doesn't win, even if he doesn't beat Roman, we're a lot more invested.
Correct. It'll be interesting, and I'll feel better about my prediction if he shows up at the Rumble.
Sure.
If he's not on the Rumble, then I think it's too far out for something to happen. And after seeing him win the title last WrestleMania, I don't see Roman dropping the title at this coming WrestleMania either, which, gosh, it feels like a boring run when I think about it that way. Like, the title hasn't been in jeopardy for like a number of years or whatever, but I don't know. They've had their card attached to Roman for a long, long time. They really, really, really want him to be The Rock. I'm sorry. He's just not The Rock, and he's not ever going to be The Rock, and he's just not that level. It's not there. But a fine person to have the title on right now, and not somebody that I can easily say, okay, this person in the locker room right now is going to take it from him. So that's why I had to kind of get outside of the locker room and say, okay, well, who's there that could be sized right where it would be believable to be able to do it? So yeah, if they set up Walter the right way, that's
And
where
they make Walter,
I'd like to
right?
see it.
Well,
That's
we
the
know
thing,
who he
right?
is.
Like the
Yeah.
passing of the torch, whether we're talking about, Hogan to Ultimate Warrior or Andre to Hogan and that kind of thing. Like, you need a pass the torch moment. Whereas if, they just give it to Goldberg or something like that,
Yeah.
what a waste of all this time.
Yeah, you can't have it be. You can, in my opinion, and I said this on the show yesterday. The person who beats Roman Reigns should not be somebody who's had the belt before. Should not be somebody who's been a top guy in WWE for 10 years and was just waiting for his moment. It should be somebody who is on the up
Absolutely.
fast, and that they want to invest in for the next many years. That they can build him right then and there, make a star, and then he's got that credential. Doesn't matter what happens after that. He's the guy who beat Roman, and he's the champion. Give the person don't take it right back the next week or anything. Give the person a 3 or 4 month run at least, and he's made.
Go from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's what happens, but I don't know. I'm feeling more and more every day like it could be something where it's, Riddle that ends up beating him or something.
Yeah.
So,
which would have been fine if it was done in the beginning.
Right. Yes.
So now we've got over a year and a half of what we have, and a lot of the steam was taken out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other Wild A predictions?
That's it. That was my one for the year.
Well, Andre said yesterday in the conversation thread that he thinks, John Smith says, sounds like you're talking about Karrion Kross. So name your guy: Karrion Kross, Keith Lee. A lot of guys like that.
That's why I didn't even want to mention him in this, but I will, since John brought up that comment. Like, Dexter Lumis is Vince sized as well, but he just feels like he would get Aleister Black when he got moved up.
Possibly, yeah. I mentioned yesterday on the show about NXT, though, is that I am somewhat reassured by the fact that the same people that are doing Raw and SmackDown, or at least have their eyes on NXT now. So, like, presumably what they build up on NXT will be extremely relevant to the Raw and SmackDown when they bring them there. Like
It would be
I'm
a
not
nice
saying
break.
NXT is going to be as good as it once was, but there's presumably more continuity now when they move up.
It would be a nice break for sure.
Andre said yesterday in the Minutes Bell Time conversation thread about a wild ass prediction that he had is that WWE continues their roster purge. And I think this is a fact of life. This is going to be something we see definitely every April and probably 2 or 3 times throughout the year. We'll see some names. It's been a while since we had a big cut, but I think to riff on that, is there somebody that you think in like sort of that upper echelon? Like this year we saw Braun Strowman go, we saw Bray Wyatt go. Is there any other names that you think WWE will cut? Now, we talked yesterday with Don talking about Kevin Owens maybe taking a leap, but is there anybody that you think might get cut from like this upper section?
Just regularly cut. I'm not sure.
I know I kind of threw that off off the cuff here, but
I could see. I agree. I don't think Kevin Owens is long for this WWE world, and it's weird for me to think that because of that, Sammy would last for very much longer as well. On the upper side of things, who could I see going? There's an odd world where I could see the Street Profits taking off. There's an odd world where I could see somebody like them getting rid of the Viking Raiders.
yeah. I go as far as to say it wouldn't shock me if WWE cut Drew.
Sure.
They did the thing with him. They put the belt on him. If they don't think they can get more out of him, and they've got him on a big contract, maybe they cut him.
Yeah, that is certain. I mean, they've done it before. He was obviously a different performer then. Drew's another one that I could conceive in a world where they have him take the belt off of Roman, but I don't know. Do you do another rebuild after you had the poor guy carry that title all through the pandemic, essentially?
Yeah.
And he's not young.
So it'll be interesting.
The other name too that's in there, I could see them cutting Sheamus.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, some of the guys that have been around a long, long time, it makes you wonder, like, okay, are they at a point where they've been around a long time and they feel like they've gotten everything out of them, so they're going to let them go, or are they there because they have such a great attitude and they give the man what he wants, and they work whatever they need, and they're a utility guy, and they can plug him in, build him up, build him down, they can do what they want. That's kind of what you have with Sheamus. I don't know if he's like ever got another world title run in him, but they can certainly put him in a world title match anytime they want because he's got the credentials from years ago.
Yeah, and I mean,
So,
my heart wants, not because I want to see the guy in this situation, but because I just know how much better he would be is if they let go Ricochet, he would be gobbled up in AEW in about 4 seconds. And what a difference he would be over there.
Ricochet, I think, would be great anywhere, including AEW, but anywhere where they're not sized like the giants of WWE. Like he could go to New Japan, work strong to the side. He could go to the New Japan main line. He could also go MLW. He could go NWA. Any place where he works people more his size, and the people his size get pushed. I think.
Yeah, he'd be great in the J Cup.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I think I covered down on all of Andre's Wild A predictions as well. So, with that said, we're going to transition. Who do you think is going to win the men's and women's Royal Rumble this January? Yesterday, John DeConnie said that it's kind of a mashup of his hopes and his dreams here and his predictions. But he said he's kind of hoping that Bobby Lashley gets that title back, and he hopes that Keith Lee wins the Royal Rumble, and that's kind of the match that we get at WrestleMania. I don't know if he really believes it's going to happen, but that's where he said. And then he also said on the women's side, he said, "Man, Raquel and Rhea Ripley. Raquel is the person he'd like to have win. Rhea Ripley is who he thinks probably will win." So, with that said, where do you stand?
So he said Keith Lee. So I have Keith Lee as well.
That's two. That's two of the hosts.
I think Keith Lee makes a lot of sense if they do this repackage and they're building him up and stuff like that. He can garner a crowd. He's a fan favorite. People like him. It's I think if he stays face, then he's got a better shot than if he goes heel, of course, because heels are easy to find right now. Um, it, I just don't see anybody else separating themselves. The only other name that I could think about, and it's just based on kind of historical stuff, if they're going to give him some runs towards history, is Randy Orton winning again.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, I think there's always an outside chance that we end up seeing something like that happen. Um, but that's I don't know. Yeah, Keith Lee makes a whole ton of sense to me, barring somebody just is a House of Fury or they figure out what they're going to do for his actual gimmick and try to give Karrion Kross the due that he got very quickly in NXT. The women's side, I don't mind Raquel as a pick. I mean, I know she's worked, I don't know, 4 or 5 house shows in a row right now up on the main. So obviously they're looking at her really seriously. And, I had said after she'd won the belt that she had come a long way, and that match with Ember Moon that they had a couple of takeovers ago was phenomenal. But my pick is going to be, and it's just kind of based on the direction that they've gone with her, and I think it's kind of a shot to some other ideas too. But I'll take Shotzi Blackheart in the women's rumble. Um, she's a colorful character. They've done a bunch of different things with her. She's not giant size like Raquel is, but there's a lot of different places that they can go with her, and she's a fresh feud for a lot of different people too. And I guess if I didn't have Shotzi, depending on where she is, I would probably go to Bailey as the surprise entrant to win it.
I mean, I hope we just get her back, right? Like
Yeah, she's
Bailey's injury was such that she should be out through WrestleMania, but we talked yesterday on the show and talking again now. I hope she beats that and is able to recover and be back early.
yeah.
Because man, 2 WrestleManias without Bailey doesn't seem fair to Bailey.
No, it's a lot of time off the camera for sure for somebody that's that good of a performer, both in and out of the
Oh
ring.
yeah, yeah. BJ Pavanka said he kind of agreed with John Nakani's Raquel pick, but he also said maybe they got Liv Morgan they're working on. Like, it's not and it's WWE's kind of motif to beat the crap out of somebody and hope that gets them over with the crowd. It doesn't often work, but Liv Morgan is kind of a low key fan favorite. Um, and they just keep beating her and beating her and beating her and beating her. And they took her best friend and cut her and everything. So that got quite a story there. Could
I
they
mean,
be
I love Liv. I think she's very underrated, and I think given the opportunities that she's done the best she can with what she's been allowed to work with. I almost feel the opposite with Alexa. I think Alexa is a better wrestler and a fine character, and I think they put too much on her plate to make her push through. So they're two ladies that I think are really their dues. Um, I would be happy with either of them winning the Rumble because I think they actually do deserve it. And there's an argument to be made with Boy. I'm not loving a lot of stuff over on the NXT side of things now that I'm catching back up, but this version of Mandy Sachs, okay, I can get there. I didn't think that was there. So she's interesting too to me. But as far as like, going to Rhea and going to Raquel, I could see that. There's another name from NXT that I could see them hot shotting up to, who would be great to me if she wanted to take down the Rumble, and that's Frankie Monet.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think BJ said it last night in the Raw conversation thread that at some point an NXT person has to win the Rumble, and he's like, might as well be Raquel. Why not? Might as
She's
well.
certainly sized enough for it. I think that's part of my hesitation on somebody like Alexa or Liv. Like, you know, Bianca's a juggernaut and she's strong and powerful and she won, and everybody else previous to that had like insane name recognition and stuff like that, whether it was Charlotte or
Yeah.
whoever, Shayna.
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Like I said yesterday, I think Braun Breaker will be on the main roster. I don't think he'll win the Royal Rumble, but he's a name that could be thrown in there, make his debut, and kind of go from there. So
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to me to see how the call-ups go and whether or not they fiddle around with their names now.
They shouldn't, right? Like the same thing we just talked about. There should be more continuity from point A to point B. Now, God, at some point they have to just call a breaker a signer, right? I mean, like at some point they've got to just lean in, or at least give us the origin story.
Are they not going to put Rick on camera at some point when he's up on the main roster fighting in a pay-per-view? Like, it just seems like a wasted opportunity. And it's like what we talk about. Like, you've got one company that loves to pay off the fans, and you got another company that feels like they want to be contrary to the fans for whatever reason. And I'm like, man, just give them what they want. Like, come on.
Yeah. All right. That said, I think we're through the hopes and predictions portion of the show. Let's jump into some very brief headlines. I don't have a lot today, but that's all right. We usually can riff on about anything. So stick with us for a second. Breaking news: The Miz was eliminated from Dancing with the Stars. So Byron and Corey and Jimmy Smith all have to deal with him being back on Raw.
Sorry, guys.
So The Miz will be coming back to Raw pretty soon, but he had a really good run at Dancing with the Stars. His star might have risen with that show. So
yeah, probably. I don't know. If they decided that they were just going to dole Miz out and have him do a bunch of stupid shows like that for the rest of eternity, he'd probably make a fairly decent living just doing that and never getting in the wrestling ring again.
It is his strength. It'd be playing to his strengths, right? Like that's where he is absolutely at his best when he is allowed to be stupid and goofy. And if you put him in a set where that's appropriate, then perfect.
To me, he's like a Double Dare host. Like,
yeah, and he's great at it. Like, right? Like that.
Just have him do that thing. Be an MC and just be a goofy idiot. Like,
yeah, it's perfect. Let's not make him WWE champion next year.
Never again.
Okay, so this week on Dynamite, we only have 3 matches advertised for Dynamite. They're good ones, sort of. We have Cody Rhodes versus Andrade. We have Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy in the Eliminator tournament, and we have Anna Jay versus Jamie Hayter. So the Moxley Cassidy one, this one really kind of stems back to your Miami Wheeler Yuta assassination a few weeks ago. So it'll be interesting to see if Orange Cassidy gets any offense in, or if Moxley runs through him the same way that he ran through Vance.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting because obviously he's just flattened these other 2 guys. I guess I would be very surprised, given everything they've done with Orange Cassidy up until this point, to have Moxley come out and do a murdering of him. But it's certainly been a different attitude that he's had these last 2 matches, so maybe we'll see that. Who knows? There's certainly a chance that, Cassidy goes to put his hands in his pocket or do one of those light kicks, and Moxley just floors him.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I don't. With his book coming out and stuff like that, like I feel like there's probably like a low key push that's coming here. I don't know if they use. I don't. Moxley's just gonna be unturnable. It doesn't matter. Like it's Austin all over again. Like the crowd is gonna cheer for him regardless. Now he could come out and he could, decapitate Orange Cassidy. And as much as the people loved Orange Cassidy, like it's as close to a face as you could destroy, and it's not gonna matter. Like Jon Moxley, his character is to destroy you. So it doesn't matter if you're good, bad, or evil or indifferent. Like he's built to crush people, and that's what people want to see. And if he does that, it doesn't matter who it is,
Yeah. And then so we have Cody Rhodes versus Andrade. I guess that'll be interesting to see where they go with that, but ultimately it looks like we're just building to a tag match with Cody and Pac versus Andrade and Malachi Black at the pay-per-view. So
yeah,
it's a weird alliance, both sides, but
yeah, these are strange bad fellows altogether. it feels like which is odd to say, like they don't know what to do with these 4 guys.
Yeah,
Like,
kind of a little bit. Yeah.
like I think there were probably some storylines that were written where we had some commingling, and all of a sudden you've got CM Punk and Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson that all show up, and you're like, I guess we better give them some camera time too. So let's just glom these guys together in these partial storylines. It's pretty. It feels like slightly disjointed for AEW, where they feel pretty on the path all the time, and this. I mean, we're gonna get some great wrestling and stuff like that. I mean, Cody, maybe he'll get his cheers back and stuff. I felt bad for him at the end of the season finale for his show, but I don't know. Like Andrade, Cody, sure, gonna be good. I'll take it. I mean, I will say that you and I kind of both called that we'd be at this Moxley Cassidy spot with this tournament, so here we are.
Yeah.
And Jamie Hayter, Anna Jay, this one's tough. I got to meet both of them on the cruise. Anna Jay is wonderful, but I don't know. Jamie Hayter has my heart. So
Yeah.
I love me some Jamie Hayter. I think she's the best bump in the business when it comes to women's wrestling. I think that she's young. She's 26. She's got a long ways to go and a long career ahead of her. She's super athletic. She's strong. She's sized right. She's got a great look. If they give her the mic with that accent, I think she could tear the place up too. And it's very, very interesting to me that she's still going with the no selling the DMD during the interviews.
She doesn't
So
do this.
she's her own woman to a degree, and
Yeah.
I like that. So hopefully they don't squander this run with her, because I think she's a diamond in a sea full of diamonds, but a really bright one with a lot of potential.
Yep. And then on Friday we have John Silver versus Adam Cole, which should be a fun match for sure. And then we have the Bunny versus Red Velvet in the TBS Championship tournament. So
yeah, 2 matches that will be fine. The Bunny has. If I was going to give a most improved, it's really hard, because I think for me, both Penelope and the Bunny now are a lot more interesting to me than they were maybe 6 or 7 months ago. They've had a lot more ring time. We've gotten to see them work more often, and I think their work has gotten better because of that. So, but I know you've professional athletes in the ring, and you would hope that would be the case.
yeah.
I like the 2 of them together. I think they're good.
I don't think it matters who wins this one, because I think
Nope.
neither one of them are winning.
Right. Neither one of these gals are going through. Yep.
All right. Well, that said, that is pretty much the end of the show, unless you got anything else you want to talk about today, Travis.
Nope, that's it. I'm excited to see where the direction of the show ends up going, and hopefully I'll be back in this chair to talk some more wrestling at some point with some continuity to it in a similar way to what we're doing here. So
Absolutely.
We'll see.
All right, before we get out of here, I want to tell some people about some stuff. So join Joey Jarzenka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday nights for the Primetime Rundown. They take you through the world of sports, and the show kicks off at 7 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And do join Al Carl every Tuesday night at 6 p.m. He hosts, alongside myself and John Smith, Gary Mahaffey, the Essential Wrestling Podcast. He takes you through the week of updates and highlights in the world of pro wrestling. You can find out who we think is going to win the week's matches. Like I said, the show kicks off Tuesdays at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And I'll also tell you about ProWrestlingPick'em.com. It's a place where you can join or create a Pick'em League to test your predictive skills in the world of pro wrestling. Create an account now at ProWrestlingPick'em.com so you can play against your friends or play against the universe. That said, Travis, I think we've done the deed for today.
We have, and usually you're taped on those ads, so I haven't had the opportunity really to do a primetime rundown on Joey Jarzenka, Ian Schreier, and the rest of the gang over there. But I really, really hope that during the course of this football season, they don't take this ass kicking personally that we're putting on them in the Eliminator. So if you're free on Fridays and you listen to this show and you want to go over there and you want to heckle them a little bit and ask them how their record is and why it is a bunch of wrestling nerds can outpredict them on their jock football nonsense, feel free to stop in and harass them in chat all you like, because I think they deserve it a little bit. There were a lot of red X's this week. I wasn't one of them. John DeConnie wasn't one of them. So we helped carry the team. It was evened out, but we are up 8 picks on those guys. So get better, nerds.
I love how the wrestling show just called the sports show a bunch of nerds.
Exactly.
All right. That said, we're out of here. We'll see you when we see you.